Welcome back to the Sophia Files. It's been a good week, I feel, for the most of us generally. How are y'all feeling today?
Good.
Good. Good.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll get introductions going. Ariel, tell us about you and what you do, and then we'll go to Danica and Melissa.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ariel, and I am the Lunar Claire, and I'm going to start focusing solely on mediumship.
Awesome. Interesting. Danica?
Hi, I'm Danica. I am opening more to my mediumship abilities, and my business is called Goldilocks Glimmers.
Love it. Melissa?
I am Melissa. My business is Rising Phoenix Medium. I am really wanting to go more into energy work. I'm a nurse by trade. I teach, and so I'm probably going to be going into something that uses all of those talents. But right now, I just do the fair circuit, and I'm in the Pacific Northwest. So if you're up here, give me a call.
Yay! Also, Ariel, why are you going more into mediumship? Are you scared?
Okay. No, not scared. Okay, so I think really it's like, how do I integrate everything? If you want to do it all and experience it all, like, how would you consider it? I think it's hard for me to put a label on exactly like what
That's
I want
fair.
to do. Yeah.
That's fair. Well, the benefit of the four of us is that the way we were trained, right? I was trained the exact same way that I trained you guys, and it is exactly through the guides always first. It's one of the reasons why we'll never fall on our face no matter what we do, so long as we're going through them. Because even if you don't feel the mediumship the way that you have sometimes, you can always just be like, I can't feel anything, guides, which we can usually feel them. Just tell me what's going on. I don't feel grandma, but grandma's here. My guide just said, so you're never going to be without any of those things. In fact, shouts to Marcel, the good medium. He's here in DFW, but he is one of the people that I remember first saying to me that he's not a psychic and that he is. I remember that so firmly that was the decision he'd made. And it was really because he was a self-taught medium. So he had those gifts from a young age. He became good with them, but there was never any training around how that's, if you can drink from the water of mediumship, the river of spirit, you can project outward too. It goes both ways. You know what I mean? So if you have a gift in psychometry, you're going to be able to be a medium. If you have a gift in mediumship, it's an interconnected web. And you guys are very specifically, and I was too trained in a way to where we went straight to the source of the river. We don't have to go sit in our compartment later on down our own particular stream, right? So, but I see what you're saying. I just thought you were like, oh, interesting.
I don't know.
No, I completely understand.
Anything, everything.
Yes. Okay. So we have an interesting conversation today. We're going to cover the Sophia codes, which is fascinating. Oh, by the way, and for anyone who's a new listener, we remote view and channel on topics. So we kind of step out of our own energy because we don't have all the answers, obviously, and we let spirit speak on these things. And that's one of the most beautiful things because we always find out something new. So the Sophia codes, auras, and they do want me to throw DNA with that. So auric fields and DNA codes, since that's sort of mirroring those two things, and then animal communication. And then we're going to cover the topic of mission and purpose. And my guides are saying that was very similar to our last group question too. So it's interesting because we do keep feeling a call to that. Talking about relationships, especially like when our parents get into relationships, how do we explain that? Because I have somebody was wanting to know about that. And then sort of integrating hidden consciousnesses. So we're going to be talking about it all. So let's start with first the Sophia codes. And I'm going to, if I can, let me see what they want to do. No. Okay. They want me to go last because I probably know the most empirical data about it. So we're going to really ask our guides to sit with us closely. Guides, guardian angels. And Melissa, I'm going to let you start with this topic.
Gosh, I don't know anything about the Sophia codes.
That's okay.
My guide says it's just another pathway of information to travel, and that's what I got.
And let's dive in a little bit to travel. What does that word mean to your team? By the way, you're right on it. It's going to, Do not feel like you're not getting that correct.
Yeah, so the analogy he made with me, he's like, when you're in a circle and you play the telephone game and you whisper to somebody else, he said, yeah, it flows from person to person. It flows through the collective consciousness, but using the codes is like sending a postcard with the information instead of just hearing it through the telephone game, because that can distort the message.
Yes. And another phrasing for what the postcard really would be is think about like a geometric sequence because one of the ways that I would describe energy is it has a geometric shape, right? We can feel when something's angular and constricting or whatever it is. The geometry is very specific. That's one of the reasons why it's concealed within that, so to speak. Ariel, I'll let you go.
So the way that I'm seeing it also is a way or like a means of life. It's almost a direction in which we take and the path where we connect with others, and just kind of seeing it almost out in like ripples.
And Danica?
That's interesting you say ripples, because that's what I'm being shown is like specifically numbers that are like floating through, like think of like cosmic looking, and they're like floating like this, and it's like the information is being passed, but it's like other realms. That's what I'm being shown.
Perfect. Okay, I want to ask you guys, what are you feeling when I add the word of dimensional release into the equation of how would that relate to the Sophianic code? Dimensional release. Melissa?
This is a tough concept. My guide is trying to put it in a way that I can understand it, and I'm having a hard time with it because he's really trying to get into the concept of time and how we see it and what it's not. So he's kind of got like this like big PowerPoint spread thing that he's trying to get across to me, and I'm like, okay, that's too much. Simple it down.
And also, don't forget, we can offer our mouth as a channel, right? If it's too hard to try and copy what's on the whiteboard, we can allow them to speak through us, if that helps. Because sometimes when my words get caught up, I'm just like, you guys say it. I can't.
He says this goes beyond the reality that you can comprehend. It is applicable to other civilizations, other life forms. It is the coding for everything. It is the math language between us and everything else. He says there's no part of existence of transmission of information to others that doesn't depend on this.
Excellent. Ariel?
I am wondering if it is more of when we have something extremely hard and they just say, give it to the universe or give it to God to handle. It almost feels like that unburdening of oneself to release those to others who are more capable of handling or processing those issues.
I love that because that's absolutely a spoke on the wheel of what that would encompass. Danica?
I'm feeling that it's where we're at in our timeline right now. The release, the dimensional release, that's what's going on right now.
Okay, so the code is essentially it's a classification of a soul. So if our souls all have the ability to add ringlet like links, but think in a three-dimensional way. So these linkings, right? We have our internal song, and we grow that, and we know that, right? And that's part of our journey. But then what winds up happening is then we start to link with each other, or we start to interlink with something that's a little bit larger, that has more of an agenda base, and that has been almost privatized. So in other words, it's almost functioning like a title. So if you were to call a enlightened feminine, you could call it a Mary Magdalene. She held within her that Sophianic code. You would essentially have Sophias, right? We would be the ones that would bear the burden of the knowledge. We would bear the ability to transverse dimensional spaces, because that is one of the things that is always repeated to us through the Christic consciousness and the Sophianic consciousness. So the Christic would be the male form of the enlightened, freed, monadic, right? So if we all come from the one true source, whatever we want to call that. And the weirder aspect is that we're not all from the same one true source. We can sit in a plane, and our particular monad collective of humanity will have this origin, almost like a GPS coordinate back to source. And then maybe this other different evolution that's much more what we would call alien. They will have a different collective. But no matter what, the first way that we could be oppressed is to have the knowledge of our geometric code concealed and the distortion of it. So when you trade around and resonate with the Sophianic code, you're actually technically, we would call it breaking free of chains, but if you, they're actually showing me you're adding more links to somebody else's geometric structure. So you're actually adding so that they can regain their knowledge of infinite nature and also free themselves from boundaries that they don't understand they're enclosed within, right? So one example would be a Christic soul, a Sophianic soul, would be able to act almost like a lawyer for trapped souls. And not only would we probably be able to act in that lawyer-esque way of like, no, these are not yours, but there would also be the ability to break down energy at a level that not every soul has. So there is a real understanding that this energy is knowledge, and I almost said cheat code. They said they don't like that. They said it's not a cheat code. It's an earned code so that you are passing through keys. And the other aspect would also be, should you engage with like a demonic energy, they would almost treat a Christic or Sophianic soul with respect. There would not be the taunting, because the other recognition is that we are more real than them. And though we would never go around and just destroy energy just because we don't like the way it feeds itself, we wouldn't really do that, right? But should we find an improper perpetration, we would have the ability to really disentangle that energy because of the nature of our soul and the things that we have done through this lifetime and through past lifetimes that have built a structure. The other thing that they're saying too is that Sophianic coded individuals work in tribal energy, and we interlace in groups of 12 is what I'm feeling. So there's also something that's very unique about always that there's the 12 and then the 13. The 12 make the 13th. So there's something about that is actually and that's why it's coveted. That's why they act like it's so special. That's interesting. It's almost like the dark energy, because they cannot interlace in this way. They can't ever get to 13 in that same way. That's why it's always bastardized. How interesting. Okay, that's the other thing. One thing that you will always understand as well is that if there is ever the emergence of what we would call a Christic energy, there will always be an incarnation that is also honoring the Sophianic. So it's almost like we think of Christ as being embodied of the Christic energy, or Krishna before him, or Buddha, like whatever that is. There has always been a feminine that arrived here in flesh and blood in the same way. And she would have almost always been, I just heard, the preparer of the way. So that's interesting. And I don't want to get too biblical, but they're arguing that there is much we don't know about the Magdalena energy, the Magdalene bloodlines, and sort of they're comparing that energy as literally the exact same thing as a Sophianic code, the Magdalena code, or that's all the same thing. It's basically the mastery of the feminine, but in a very specific way, because like Melissa said, there are other ways to master energy, right? It's just kind of a choice, and it's a choice of sacrifice. That's the other one too. So those that are too militant and too about domination, they will have trouble mastering what would be considered a Sophianic code, even though they may be excelling in this other aspect of creation and reality. Does that make sense? Melissa, what does your team say about that? Or if there's anything they want to add in.
They just said spot on.
If you were to embody and encapsulate the Sophia, this original energy, there is a lot of grief in the way that creation has been burdened and perverted. And so in that grief is also forgiveness, because it is technically in her perspective of her doing that things were created improperly. So when you want to get hard on yourself and you want to be frustrated with what you do, the Sophianic code is kind of there to say, there is no room for this. For me to be able to be free, I had to forgive myself. For you to be able to be free, you have to as well. There's no, and then that Christic energy is the reminder. It's almost like this energy became bound in its unknowing and bound in its confusion. And then, but it's also in its curiosity. And then the Christic energy came and sort of reset the pathway. And between the two of them, that's the path of ascension. So it's almost like if the Christic energy is the judger, the like, are you being an honorable individual? Do you have your soul together? Is your, you know, it's almost like the father, the judging father, she is the forgiving mother. So you will lose some of your connection to that energy should you ever become overly vindictive towards others or overly frustrated with self, because it almost cannot, it doesn't allow that. So that's a good reason for us to sometimes not be as hard on ourselves as we are, because
And I just kind of had an epiphany on that topic, because they were telling me earlier, like it's in everything, it's encompassing. And I think what they were alluding to is the whole mother energy, the feminine energy. It is creation, it is protection, um, it is the grief, it is all of it, it is everything. Whereas the Christic energy has its place, but it's almost if that feminine it's everything. I don't know how else to say that from their perspective, but that's why it is coveted.
yes, and suppressed. And the Christic energy is almost whenever, should we ever fall to our darkness, right? That polarity we're allowed to have. It's almost like we would call in a reminder. Sometimes that will even come through as our children, or it will be someone external. But there is a way for us to call for a reminder should we fall. Where in your timeline do you feel that you have moved most frequently with energy like this?
That's interesting. I'm being shown the numbers. I don't know if this is right, but this is what I'm being shown, 1700 BC.
Okay. And it would have been during, well, we've always felt grid work around you. It would have been when you were setting energy in place. So it's something that is one of the reasons why I think you have that energy with you, is because you were active in channeling that energy, potentially more so than us, from what I'm feeling. It feels like you were
It's interesting
probably,
you say that, because I actually had a meditation the other day and I was shown that.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I feel, man, interesting. Okay.
Like it went back further than I actually thought.
Well, and it's where we will always terminate when we find the origin of our soul, right? So we can't go further back than this energy as our essence as well. Seed of creation is what I keep hearing. Okay, to downgrade a little bit of intensity, but how interesting. Okay, so let's talk about auras and the auric field, and anything that you can get around what would be unknown or unique, because again, we can go online and read everything you want about auras. And I believe that a lot of that is relatively roughshod or maybe a little bit inaccurate. So, not that I'm judging it, but we're going to ask that whatever we think we know, we allow the guides to speak past that. Ariel, I'm going to start with you.
So, what I am feeling around the auric field, and it's more from an impurity standpoint. So, what I mean by that is what flaws are most prevalent in our energy. I want to say mistakes. It is that which is burdening us most heavily at the time. And in order to clear those impurities, there's almost showing it as a water filtration system, just through a cycling process until what we consider the water to be clean should clean up the auric field and be presentable.
I love that. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Danica?
I'm being shown that auras are like, so everybody has their unique frequency, and the aura is like the color of their frequency. So it's like it shows almost like where they're at on their journey of their soul. There can be different like splotchy auras, or like brighter auras, or like pink auras or things like that. And it shows more of the story of the soul, is what I'm being told.
And Melissa?
The analogy that they were giving me is it is like your skin as you get older, and it shows the wear and tear, and it shows what you've been through, and anybody can look at you and see you've got a scar on your face or you have burns, or they know what you've been through, and the aura does carry that. So somebody who is astute at reading an aura would be able to tell you had this trauma in a past life, or today you're just, you're feeling a little discombobulated. So let's see if we can smooth out that energy field. So yeah, I think you're both right. Different aspects of the same animal.
Yes. And Ariel, what you were talking about the clearing it with the filtration. One of the things that I always love is if you've ever done any kind of meditation with Terry, she will talk about energy coming out from the crown and flowing down like water back down and reuptaken into your root, right? So that's the torus field that we're running. And we have really 3 areas that run independent toric fields. The up here, that kind of crown energy, but really it's its own emitter, the chest area, and then the gut. So that's when you can get really discordant energetic fields when one is shut down or one's not being honored or if they're in high conflict. The other thing is that, when we talk about feeling energy that we don't want to feel, we're walking through the grocery store and suddenly you're seeing something that you don't really wish to see. More often than not, it's because somebody is what I consider sparking out from the top, almost like they can't even control anything. They have no sense of energetic hygiene. So then they're, fighting with their wife in their head, and now you're seeing the fight that they just had. It's like, well, I'm not diving into you, which means you must be sending out and emitting out into me. So that's one of the areas. It's an information field is the way that they want it the most highly classified. The reason that there is regret that people want to perceive auric fields as only in color systems is because that's like taking something that's 4-dimensional and making it 2D. So one of the biggest things that there's probably some irritation around is those auric photographs. Not because they're not fun, and I think they're really beautiful for people who don't really even believe in an aura, right? So it can be very introductory. But I think, they think, so when you get attuned to this work, one of the things that you'll find is people read auric fields massively differently. And it also depends on what you're trying to find out. So one thing that I've never found valuable ever is looking at somebody and identifying the color around them. One of the reasons really with that as well is because you can look so much deeper and you miss so much by just saying, well, I believe that green means this and that, because it's not really quite that way. Just like Melissa earlier, when we said, what color is it? You said emerald green. I said, why? Is it because it's that what they chose or that what you chose? And they said, well, because it was important to you. So again, if I look through my third eye and I see emerald green, if I'm just unaware, I'm going to think, well, that's your aura, and your aura would be emerald. And if I don't look deeper, I'm not going to recognize, no, this is an integrated energy that's actually outside of you, but also within you. And it's kind of in that non-dimensional zone, and so I can't really apply that to you. But I will probably always see that somewhere near you, should I choose to look. The other thing that my guides used a couple of years ago that was always very helpful is think about honeycombs, right? And think about somebody's auric field like a bunch of honeycombs, and some have lamps lit in them and some of them are shut down. So for instance, you lose somebody that you love. Outside of nowhere, your auric field is going to have a bunch of little rooms of grief, probably past loss, current loss, anything that looks like loss and abandonment, and those lamps will be on that day, especially if that's in your energy strongly. And then I might look at, and they're kind of like the lamps that can dim, right? So then I might look at you on a really good day, even though you've not healed more. And it's not that those lamps aren't lit, but you have other areas lit. Now you have enjoyment, joy, gratitude. So that's the other aspect of why we have to look at it sort of as these very meticulous moving parts in their own right, because that's how you can help people heal. Because when you look at them and say, okay, well, and here's another example too, just to add to confusion, the honeycomb is one way to see an auric field. There are some people who have a very unique way of seeing to where they actually see physical things on you. So here's an example. And I'm going to pick Danica. Okay, so if I were to look at Danica and I didn't know her, I see plated metal pauldrons on your shoulders, right? And they're almost, they're not spiky, but they're serrated. And I feel that that is probably something that you put on pretty early because it almost seems like that they are grown into your skin a little bit, right? So that's one thing I would say. Or the other thing I'd probably say is, if you don't mind, but I feel if I were to look, I almost see a locket and its hinges are a little bit broken. And for whatever reason, that represents some of your daughter. And it's not that she had a locket or you did, but it's almost like you don't open it because you recognize that the hinges are loose. And so you're almost like, I want to just keep it safe and closed. So you might find sometimes over your timeline that you've been surprised that you're grieving and some of its intensity and some of it not. Right? So I'm seeing that on your body, but I don't see that on your body. I don't do you know what I'm saying? So that's the other way. The other way that, for instance, I would see like this would be if you look into someone's auric field to see negative entities, right? Because if you don't look specifically in that more material sense, then you can't see, oh, well, that's a reptilian or that's this or that or that's this or that. For some reason, okay, around Melissa's neck, I feel that she carries anchors, but they're not her anchors. They're anchors that she chooses to uptake, probably from your kids, or family. It's pretty. And so if I were to look at her, I would say, well, I feel that she's probably pretty burdened by the fate of others. That's not negative or positive, it just is. But again, if a client isn't prepared to hear that or understand it in that way, that could maybe be a scary way to describe something. Because then they're like, well, what do you mean? There's anchors around my neck and am I going to drown? And it's like, no, this is the way the energy is going to present itself when you play. It's almost like thank you. It's almost like a setting. It's like, do you want to see it in black and white? Do you want to see it in color? Do you want to see it anthropomorphized, whatever that, right? How do you want to see someone's auric field? And then you have to choose it and allow the rest to come. So for instance, Danica, I want you to try to see the more physical things around Ariel and whatever.
Being shown a mermaid. Definitely mermaid tail.
Interesting. And let's dig into that. What is that about?
It feels very like a motherly energetic field about emotions, like taking on emotions, helping others with emotions.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. And Melissa, if you try to apply that same methodology to Ariel, what do you see around her on her physical form or in her auric field?
So I see her heart as being very, very blood red. And what that symbolizes for me is that she gives so much of herself to others. Sometimes that is at her detriment.
Can't
There's
hear
a
it.
caution.
Yeah, Melissa, you're cutting in and out. I'm so sorry. It usually happens when you get into really high connection.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
Okay.
going to try that one more time.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yeah, but it's a
No.
little laggy.
Yeah, it like cuts in and out.
I don't know what else to do here. I may have to. Last time
Like
I
a
logged off
cliffhanger.
and then came back. No. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm going to log
try
off.
that and then try to close any apps that are on your phone or on your computer.
Gotcha. Okay. Let me try
Okay,
that
cool.
first. We'll see.
I don't know what she's saying. I'm sorry.
It's like a cliffhanger. It's like,
I
what?
know.
I know. I was like,
You're like, what's it mean?
Well, let me close out real quick too, because my screen turned black. I had turned the camera off real quick to fix the AC
Okay.
because it was getting cold in here.
Oh, it's okay. We can
Before I
reset.
log out,
We'll
any
just edit
better?
around all this. Melissa, I'm still
Okay.
not hearing anything.
yeah, I don't hear.
So Danica, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, hey.
And then there were two. So, all right, let's see. Melissa, how are we feeling? Do we have you? Okay, no. It's always, this is always the way that energy affects technology. It's always the worst.
Mhm.
And she always it starts to kind of spike up, usually when she's in the middle of delivering a really interesting
No,
message.
why does it do that?
I don't know.
Hi,
She needs
welcome
to
back.
ask her guide, say please for 2 hours.
Yeah, well, please, can we just get some stability in our connection, in our physical
because
connection?
she's fine like 99% of the time.
Yeah.
They like to leave us on the cliffhangers.
They really do. especially using her. But even I'm a little bit
Whenever
laggier than I'd like to be.
Yeah, you are tonight too.
whenever she was describing earlier that her guide was just way, it was like the information was just way too much. That was what I was picturing, was like a big chalkboard and she's like in a university classroom. And it's like, do you
Yes.
understand? Please tell me, do you understand? Just like furiously scribbling away with chalk on a chalkboard.
Well, she'll always be very strong when she allows herself to kind of just feel it. But it's very usual for that to be a little bit, we all got control issues, myself deeply included. Does it make kind of sense what I'm saying when I'm talking about, like, yeah, you can read it in color, but you also might as well put it into a position to where you can describe it to a client or even understand it more fully for yourself. I don't really see the value in memorizing what the colors mean. I don't really even think that that's how it emerges from our energy always that way, but it's sort of a codex that people get used to using. And it's
Yeah.
not to say I don't see color around people. Sometimes you do, but
Yeah. But I almost feel like it's unique anyway. Even if two people have the same color, it's different. Even like the feeling's
absolutely.
different about it. So I think it's unique anyway, even if you see pink around two people.
So what did you see around Ariel?
Okay, so very, very dark red heart. So, what that was symbolizing for me is that she is giving herself to others almost to the detriment of her. It is that the caution there is just to make sure that you are attending to your own energy before you give it out to others.
I definitely
That's
feel
so
like I've been
strong.
working on that the last few months.
And you're doing really well.
Thank you. I just want to add, really, to not let the conversation here steer anyone away from anything, because whenever I would say like I got into spirituality was through the aura photo, and
Yes.
that, yeah, it was like, I didn't really know what to expect and going through it, but I think more than the Auric, the reading that I got with it, and it was very spot on. I would say it definitely hit a lot of like the grief that I was in at the time, and it just felt like I was actually like being seen. And so,
Yes.
don't, it's like follow your instinct. Don't let anything stop you from doing anything. Do what feels right
No,
to you.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm
and I will
curious.
tell you too, because I did research this back in the thousands and I've got a background in photography. So they use electromagnetic plates for you to put your hand on. And so they're doing, the camera does this interpretation of what that energy is that you're emitting. And then it literally flashes lights in the camera to take. So the lights are in the camera and they'll light up depending on what that electromagnetic signal is telling them to. So it is just a one interpretation of your aura. It is not to be taken as gospel.
Well, and the other thing too, I'm feeling led to say really as well is, should people like us, this is for us more than anything, should you ever see an attachment in someone's auric field and they're not your client and it's not your business, I would very much avoid acknowledging it. Because there is always, it's like, why get your hands dirty? I know that sounds terrible, but there is always, it's like when you're walking down a busy street, you don't want the serial killer to know that it's the serial killer. There's some validity in sort of allowing certain things to be, because there's the other weird reality where sometimes it's terrible. Sometimes attachments are even allowed through the context of the guides for a lesson. So sometimes we would not even be allowed to clear it. Okay, out of curiosity, what do you guys see around my energy?
Ooh, I'm being shown like emerald green diamonds, like all over.
Interesting.
That's interesting. And
Melissa,
pearls. Yeah.
we love a pearl moment. I'm curious, what do you feel that those things are?
You talking to me or Danica?
Danica, sorry.
Good, because I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because I'm also being shown like a copper like shield too.
Interesting.
It feels like you have very high priced knowledge and you have a shield of protection around you.
Mm,
That's what it feels like.
I can completely understand that because what was weird was whenever I ask you that, they said these are for you to distribute. They're not like that I own them. It's almost like I'm just there to pass it to. Interesting. Melissa, I'll let you go, just out of curiosity.
Okay, mine's boring. It's
That's
really
okay.
all I'm seeing is like this silvery cloud around you. And I think it's the same as Danica saying, like, that it is a shield. And I know you are open to us like working with you, but I get that don't get too close to me. Just arms width, arms reach.
Yes.
So you're very you keep close to yourself is what I would interpret from that. Like you really don't want to give away more than you need to people because of what you know. Like she said, like Danica said, your knowledge is sought after, but also it can be a hindrance for you whenever you are trying to be real with people. Like you have that guard up, so it is almost so hard for you to get out of work mode and having to protect
Yes.
yourself, so it makes it difficult for you to be one-on-one with someone.
That's so accurate. And Ariel, just out of curiosity.
So, it's always, well, why this? So the first thing that I had seen was a headdress around you, but it was almost like a skull, not like human or anything, some animalistic skull around you. And then with bones going around also. And I don't see you with shoes on. And I think it is just for you to always be wild and to be free and to not let yourself become caged. And I guess caged within the confines of your own mind. If we're going
You're
down
so
the
right.
knowledge route. But yeah, just to allow yourself to remain wild and free.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate that. It's always fun to kind of see what's out there in the energetic field because we can't see these things for ourselves in the mirror always. Sometimes, though, especially in certain meditations, we can. And they're kind of showing me one. So it's really interesting because they're saying, oh, maybe we should do this for a class sometime. But they're saying if we were to meditate and go into a place of sacred energy and post up in front of a mirror in that space, not literally, we would get to see some of this stuff better. How interesting. Okay. I'm going to see if there's anything they want to say about auric fields anymore. Okay. Okay. This kind of falls into the area of chords, chord cutting, what chords are. And so I know that we've talked about that in class, especially around weaving our own chords, but there is very strongly, this is the unfairness of auric fields. If I'm obsessed with Danica and she doesn't even know I exist, I can still show up in her auric field. So it's one of the reasons why clearing and keeping cleared, especially in the online world, is super important now more than ever. And also helping if you have kiddos, doing what you can to sort of you can't see, there are ethics here. You can't cut someone's cord that doesn't want it. And most often, there's kind of an argument against cutting cords for somebody else anyway, because when they're done, they drop off like umbilical cords. So if we go there and cut it, there's a good chance that that's just going to reaffirm. We can aid in the process of cutting a cord, especially if someone's asking us to do that in our own energy. But we would really have to walk hand in hand with our higher self because they are the ones who have the geometric knowledge to do that well. But, we know how to access our guides, so that's one of the reasons why we don't have to worry about this too much. But really just understand family members who are obsessed with you, maybe they feel like that you are not doing what they want. And through that cord that they built that you didn't really accept necessarily, energy can flow. So, I don't see any unhealthy cords in any of y'all. I'm going to be very real with you. I feel that there's probably, more than anything, we all bear the representation of kind of having some control issues. So we're going to have, they're kind of almost like mycelium that just kind of go out to the people that we love. So that's part of what we do, and maybe we could work on that. But we do have an excess of energy, so we can sometimes support that and be relatively unhindered comparative to other people. Okay.
And I did want to say too, before we go, my guide was wanting to put it out there that when you, if you were referencing energy work, aura slightly different than energy work. It's like the Venn diagrams. They kind of cross over a little bit. But if you wanted to do energy work on somebody, you're not necessarily going to affect their auric field. However, you could that could be something that is an impetus to them improving their own auric field, if that makes sense.
Yes,
So if
that's a
you have
great
that
point.
energy flowing better in your body, that can make you feel better. It can make you think more clearly. And so therefore that might improve your aura.
Yes, that is a great point because it is emitted from self. It's like a holographic field that has to be run by your own system. Okay, and then like that's a perfect example. And then through other people's energy work, we can potentially unclog the motherboard, or we can try, right? And then it's up to them to keep it unclogged to maintain that energy transfer. That's the other reason why magnetic healing is not what we do, because there's no need. We would trans channel. Healing is always going to be the way that needs to be done, especially by people like us. Okay, and then animal communication. So that's always a fun one. And I want to
Mine are
broaden
right
it.
here.
Yes, I've got my babies.
Meows.
Yes.
And this one right
Hello.
here is the one I was going to talk to you about.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, then let's get started on just the topic. And what I really want this to focus on is messages about the different animal collectives and how they work with us and how they work with each other. So that's going to be the first thing. And then we can go much closer down to the family of like, what are our cats thinking? Which ironically, Ariel and I talked about this a little bit during our class. But okay, we're going to just touch on the collectives and how they function because we are also an animal. We also have a collective. So Danica, I'll let you start.
You're going to have to come back to me because I'm not getting anything right now.
That's okay. If you want, try to call in a collective of preference. For whatever reason, I'm hearing for you horses. So maybe start there.
It's interesting to hear that.
Yeah, there's definitely each of these animals that we can interact with have their own sort of like agenda or abilities or traits that they can help us with, or they have their own purpose for what their group. So if like, let's just say cats, because we all love cats and we know a little bit about cat lore. So these two are around me a lot, and cats in general have an ability to see spirits or see other energies that we don't. Whereas the canine energy is more protector and guardian. Very, I hate to say this, it sounds bad. Very simple, very open. There's no covering their intent. I'll put it that way. So they are very open and bonded with their owners and protecting if they are allowed to develop themselves without having harm done to them. So if they're not having trauma, that's the essence of the dogs. We've talked in the past too, because they're bringing up the eagles to me again, about how these animals can choose as a collective to not work with us.
Yes.
So I feel like the domesticated animals, the horses, dogs, cats, those are the ones who have integrated themselves into human existence to the point where they are intertwined with us. Whereas like whales, for instance, maybe not so much. So communicating can be challenging for the ones who aren't so closely related to humans, is what they're saying to me.
Yes, that's a great point. That's actually an excellent point. We'll talk about that in a minute. Ariel, what are you feeling around this topic?
To kind of maybe add a little bit more to what Melissa said about the cats, they are more for the unseen world. I know, like my cat in particular, she just runs around in the dark in the shadows, and she has her little perch, and I call her Batman. That is just more of how I feel around the felines, while the dogs are more of the physical world protectors. And with that, I mean more after our physical well-being, where they say that the dog is man's best friend. They will also, particularly with the weight of the dogs, because whenever you do have the larger dogs and they lay on you almost like a security blanket. So that's what I feel more around the dogs. And they wanted to bring up the deer, and with the deer being the natural shepherds of the world, and where we follow the deer tracks, we know is safe. Also, that's almost what I'm feeling, where when we see the deer tracks, we can trust that it's a safe path to follow and that they would never lead us astray. or into any sort of danger. It's almost like leading us away from danger.
Danica?
So I'm being told that it's like a symphony, and that each breed, each different animal, each everything is like an instrument in the symphony, and some of them resonate with others and they can communicate with others, and some they don't go together, they don't interact, they don't communicate with each other. But as a collective, we need every different kind to create the symphony. And something about, it's funny you said horses, because I first heard workhorse, which is funny because that's what I used to feel like, and definitely hearing wild and free. So
Okay.
I'm wondering if you have any more about that.
I do. Yes. So we're on very similar metaphors because they were saying that, the agenda of animals is like a chord of notes, right? So they have one agenda here, they have one agenda here, and then all together they play the note that is a horse. Well, one of the things that we recognize is horses before now have essentially been one of the things that kept us able to move around, able to hunt, alive and well. But also because their heart rate is so slow and also so calming, so peaceful, and their resonancy is so stable that there's a lot of healing that happens just by sharing space with them. So, but then, should you be a falconer, you're going to probably integrate some of that freedom, some of that, it would almost probably release certain clogs in the arteries, so to speak, because of the freedom that they represent and the dominance that they represent in the skies. So then we go into, okay, well, this is the chord that makes an animal. Then that's one of the reasons why they would be around us spiritually. So we go into that spiritual animal side where we see, okay, well, the reason that we would have an animal like that is because we are missing that chord in us. Chord like chord of a note, not chord like right. And so that's one of the reasons why should you, like say for instance, the bear energy that's with me. A lot of that is because of deficiencies in my childhood. So I'd be very surprised if I were without that in this lifetime, just because of the nature of my integration with it, right? But I might have another energy that is more, no, motherly is not the right word because that also applies. I'm trying to see what they'll pull for me. Oh, well, like a hummingbird, right? So very skittish, but very seeking and can be very dominant and aggressive, but generally speaking, just loves beautiful things and live and let live. So that energy is something that I admire, but you'd probably not see that in my energy. So that would maybe be a good, sign for me, right? Maybe that would be something that if my guides brought that to me, I'd know, okay, I know I like hummingbirds. They know I like that. There's something to enjoy or to investigate. With the horses around Danica, I do feel this just goes more back to, you've spent more lifetimes in an older time than some of us. And I feel that there has always been a very angelic relationship there. I don't know how to say that better. It would almost feel, I know this sounds crazy, almost a Pegasus-like energy, actually. And it is funny because, before we knew it to be what it was, Dallas was considered Pegasus City before Fort Worth, So there's a lot of interesting correlations to some of the placement there. Around Melissa, let me see. I do feel strong Raven energy.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I do. I feel very strong Raven energy. And it would be it's not really serving a deficit of you though, which is interesting. It is almost acting more like a guide for you to go towards, as opposed to, like, for instance, I lean on my bear or Terry leans on her wolves. Ariel, what do you see around Melissa as far as animals?
I would see something more, I say fierce and ferocious, but I just think of the lion around you. But not like a female lion, like the main lion, the head of the pack.
Interesting. I
And
love
it's
that.
the emphasis on the mane itself that's what stands out about the lion.
Because I'm bougie.
No, no.
I like to look good.
No, and you do, girl. No, but it also feels like you will draw fire for your people. Almost like if someone has to go like deal with and be that front and center to receive aggression or anything negative. It's almost like you step forward to take that pretty easily. It's really, I do feel that energy. I also feel fox energy around you. So I felt that as well. I feel there's dolphin energy and well, they're changing that. Hold on, let's go. It would be okay, I guess this is weird. It would be the killer whale. It would be a whale. It's like
Sorry
yeah,
to interject,
that's what I'm
but it's always like, well,
No.
that's so interesting. When I was growing up, I loved killer whales. Like that was my
Okay.
jam. Was I always had the killer whales, and
Well, whenever I said dolphin, your energy got offended. That's why I was like, nope, it's not a dolphin.
No,
no,
It was
I was kind of waiting to see what you would say because I was like, no, I think it's whale. Pretty sure it's
yes.
whale.
Okay. That's so funny. It's almost like you find dolphins effeminate in comparison. It's almost like they're just funny. Okay, I'm trying to see if oh, well, here's the other aspect too. You can always connect, just like you can connect to your guides. Even if this is not a collective that you hold true, you can always ask for it to come forward. Just like we can ask the mineral kingdom to help us in energy work, right? We can ask for accesses, and it's up to them to grant it. But we have lost the knowledge to ask. So an example would be like if I'm feeling unsteady or I need strong understanding of how to weather a storm, we could call through buffalo and bison energy. And I could just sit there and meditate on trying to learn all that I can that collective is willing to impart to me. Or I can ask for them to stand with me, right? Because in every collective, there's always going to be the philanthropist, the charity worker. Those energies do exist in those collectives. I want to see if there's anything else you want to say about that. But I feel like, does anybody else have any messages around this topic?
what was the reason for the killer whale? I interrupted you. I'm so sorry, but just
No,
when it's
let me
like,
feel that.
I feel like the killer whale it's a fierce protector. It's not just the killing side of it, but they protect each other in their pod. And you're so family oriented. I feel like that has a lot to do with it. So it still doesn't mean that you would not like kill for your family in terms of like that part of the aspect of the killer whale, but it is mostly just that you're going to protect anybody in that close family knit of yours. Like that is really important to you.
And there's a
So in that way you're
complexity of
alike.
emotion. So that's the other aspect of your sort of the watery nature and sort of they actually help you manage your emotional reality. I don't know this about whales. I don't really study, I don't know much about them, but what my guides are sharing with me is that they are some of the most complex emotional beings, and they have high empathy and very strong. It's almost like they just have larger abilities to almost hold different emotional energies. And they're showing it like a vortex of energy. They're showing me a spiral. It's almost like they can slow it down and speed it up and slow it down very within their own free will, much stronger than most of us can. We're very sparky, right? This affects us and then this affects us and we can start to spiral. So that I feel like they're aiding you with a lot of your emotional management. So I would say more like me with the bear, you do lean on this energy a little bit more too. It is supplementing. And Danica, because I know I spoke about horses, but I don't actually see that around you as an active guide energy. It almost is like you have a deep connection with that collective. But I'm trying to see what I feel here. Okay, I do see almost like, this is going to sound weird, but I see almost like it's either a monkey or a chimp. I can't tell, really. And it's something that is sort of, because they showed me them interlinking from their hands to their tails and like their collective, right? And it feels almost like, because I feel like it sits on your shoulder. It's kind of, I almost want to say it's a little bit the party animal, right? So I feel like there's a little, that's part of the energy that, because I feel like when you get too down or it's almost like that will kind of amp you up. So one of the things would also be to manage that because they're very spontaneous energies. The other thing too, though, is they're showing me that they're willfully domesticated. I don't know anything about monkeys. I'm sorry. But this is what they're showing is that they're willfully domesticated. And so you have pretty strong management of what, if you send something out, this is also one of the reasons why you could get yourself in trouble by surveying things that you shouldn't, but it almost like it acts on your will. It can be like a tool almost that I don't see in some of our guides. Is this anything that's resonating with anyone else or am I crazy?
crazy.
No, I think the joviality of the monkey is spot on. Yeah.
But what else do you feel around her? Because I've felt fox around her before, but I'm not feeling that as strongly right now.
I was feeling otter.
I love that.
Yeah. And, to go with the linking, they hold hands falling asleep, and they have
Interesting.
their special rock. So if you have like something super special to you, it's almost that like I don't gonna hold on to it, not let it go, but also appealing to that cute and cuddly nature. There we go.
I
I was
love it.
like,
No,
you're spot on.
There we
I love
go.
it. All right. No, I think we always, it's very interesting too because I feel like I'll speak for myself. I always feel so strong. It's almost like we do create, and I don't practice or believe much in witchcraft, but it is almost like when we work in this circle, because I see things and it's almost like I don't know that I would be able to perceive certain things if it weren't in this setting. It's very interesting, but I love it. It makes me feel cool.
It's like our energy together creates something of its own. It's pretty cool.
Yes.
I
I
love it.
feel that's very, very true because I feel a lot more energy run through my chest like a circuit board because that's one of my purposes. And so it's almost like I feel it's very without being overwhelming. Okay, so we're gonna go into the mission and purposes. And
Actually,
last
before we
week,
go on, there's the funny
okay,
story that I was going to tell you. Okay,
yes, please. I'm sorry.
so I was in my bedroom, and because I have one cat that eats my bed, so I keep the door shut. And so anytime I do open it, they just all like want to rush in there. Well, sometimes they get stuck in there. I don't know, and they're hiding under the bed or whatever. So anyway, I was coming out of my bedroom, and actually, no, I had just stepped in. So I just stepped into the threshold inside the bedroom, and then I look down and I see my little black cat just zoom out. But it was like so fast. It was like a little black blur. But then I was like, I didn't hear anything. You hear them running. And then I pop my head out and no, my black cat is asleep on the cat tree. So my husband and I were
Interesting.
talking about this. Yeah, because it was most definitely a black cat. Like I could see that. So I was like, all right, because we have one of our cats that we've had will come and walk on our bed. And my husband has felt it because he was just like, wait, did you feel that? I'm like, well, what did you feel before I say yes? And he has. He has felt little kitty paw prints or footprints on the bed. So I know they hang around us and I know that they're here. But for that one, I was curious to see what you guys think happened with this little black blur that was scooting out of my bedroom.
All right, I have an idea, but I want Ariel. I'll let you start, and then Danica after because I don't want to pollute the well yet.
I do feel like it was actually that it actually had happened. I almost see it like portals, like a jump in time.
Danica, what do you
No
feel?
negative, nothing negative
Oh,
though.
Yeah, I
It was
don't
just
feel anything negative around it either, but I do feel like, yeah, that did happen. And you did see what you thought you saw. It does feel like almost like it spooked itself. That's what it feels like to me. Like it saw something or it like something spooked it. I don't know if, yeah, I don't know why.
I feel that there's an astral projection side of it because
That's
I
what I
feel
think
that
too.
it was, yeah, I feel that it was your cat, but I feel that because she's shut out of that room, she will go into a meditative state that looks like sleep and then just join you because she's stubborn as all hell.
Yes, she
And she
is.
finds it
And it's,
offensive that she's not in there. And then she's
and
almost
what I
like, oh,
also
you want to
find,
try a door?
she's like, doors are nothing. I can go where I want to go.
Exactly.
But no, I think it was funny because when I called my husband, I was telling him, he's like, is there another ghost cat in our house? I'm like, I don't think so. He's like, I think it was her astral projecting. And I'm like, oh my God, I think you're right. So he was the one that
Yes.
came up with that. Anyway, it's a funny story. So I was just curious to see what y'all thought.
Well, and I do feel that because I do understand what Ariel's saying. I do feel that there will be times, or there have been times that I do feel you're engaging in a residual astral energy. So I feel like almost that you would not really, because again, time is not important. This would be, I feel that this has always been true around you, but things are just a little bit thin where you go. Let me put it that way.
It is. Yes, it
Yeah.
is 100% thin right now. So, yeah, so
Yes.
whether she was actually astral projecting or it was that little touching of the timelines, and, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of the same thing, but yeah, it was
Because I
funny.
feel like there's probably a loop. Her running and darting creates loops. So I feel like you might, if you get hyper stressed out, I feel like you almost might see a loop instead of an active thing. So that's you know, part of that. Okay, so what is it that you wanted to kind of help me define because last week we said, how do we find our meaning and purpose? So now, Danica, rephrase what your question around that was, or the question we're going to ask everybody. Help me understand that a little bit more. Specifically, what are you wanting to know about you?
What is my mission and purpose?
Like for life or for career?
Let's go for career.
All right, Ariel, let you start.
I see you at like ahead of a table. And so I'm kind of wondering if that might mean that you are involved in, they want to use the word clinic, but involved in some sort of clinic, but not a healing clinic, but not like a doctor's office, because there's not really a lot of spoken words that are, it's almost like, I guess when I see it, it's like a silent clinic. I'm seeing a lot of hues in purples, in pinks, in blues, but it's quiet and peaceful. So maybe with a resort factor. So maybe where people go for a healing, where they don't feel like they need to say anything because you'll just be able to pick up on it. But you're not going to be the only one there. You'll have a team with you. And I think that's why I see you at like in a position of leadership.
So what I'm getting is that it's important to you to have the respect of others and to feel like you are a leader in the role that you have, or at the very least that you bring something to the table. Like that has to be there for whatever career that you've chosen to do. Like that self-satisfaction of, I am confident. I feel good about myself. I'm giving something to this company or this whatever the clientele group is, that is important to you. And I also kind of feel like you enjoy being sort of the face for that. Like, in other words, like interacting with the public, that you're good at that. And that that gives you some sense of pride. But wherever you land, it has to be fulfilling for you. You cannot just do a numbers desk job. It has to be something that you feel good about. It has to be something that you're passionate in. I'm not getting a specific career that you're going to land in. It's just more of like, if you were looking at directions to go in, these are the things that you have to consider about yourself, whether you're aware of them or not. That has to be addressed in whatever job you take.
And I'm
Yep.
very, very strongly aligning with what Ariel was saying too about just the functionality of it. The topics that really come to me for you to be applying yourself to understand more and to study would be energy healing, not similar to Reiki, but really you're a little bit beyond the constraints of that. I feel because essentially your work is within reattunement of the grid system. We do have grids on our physical form, right? So you will be retuning energy fields. And I feel also you will be clearing spaces. So I know this is something that will not make you feel overly excited about, but you will have the gift of clearing negative energies, clearing spaces, clearing items. That's something that you should investigate more deeply with. And the other thing as well is you have the ability to provide the space for someone to reset. So I know that's not really something that you can ever monetize and like, I can reset your energy. Like, that's not really what I mean, but it is what you'll be doing quite a bit of. And I almost feel that you will be sought after by people who feel like they're at their end of the line with their own ability to do anything for themselves. So the advice would also be to understand that your presence will have a little bit of an addictive tune to some of the people that you heal. So you're gonna have to develop a really good guard against that. One of the paths forward would be to start building relationships with metaphysical shops that are local to you, or start to understand, you're, like you already are, ingratiating yourself within places that are seeking aid that clinic energy, or so that volunteerism that can sort of get you started. Because it first starts by, yes, I've had these experiences and I know how to get through them, into, well, actually I have a spiritual background, into, okay, well, now my friends are telling me about this chick that I talked to and I just felt so much better. And I felt like that I could do life again when I spoke with her. That's what I'm seeing as a progression, so to speak. In
Just
the
to add to
meantime, as
that,
far as income, I've always seen some industry like work around you. I feel that that's part of also kind of releasing overimportance. And also you like very much the fact that your work ethic will equal very quick money. So you can go take 2 weeks off because you work 2 weeks aggressively. You need that freedom to income as you grow this other side of your purpose. Ariel?
I was just going to add what I was also seeing was like that one board game where if you have a circle and then you have the sticks that go in with the balls, and then the goal
Oh,
is
Hungry
to
Hungry
Yes.
move all
Hippo?
the sticks.
No,
No,
No?
no,
but I love,
I like that game.
I know, I
that
do
is a
too.
good game though. Oh my gosh. Just
So you
to
have an issue with gluttony, Danica? No.
No, but okay, there is a game at I think Dave and Buster's where you or like somewhere where you can actually like hit the hippo to get the balls.
Oh, really?
It's
That's
like
cool.
yeah, there's like a human sized hungry
And
hippos.
that's for divorcees. No, I'm just kidding.
My God.
Oh my God.
No, but I guess if you can picture that game where if you have the round body of somebody like their essence and they have the balls, I guess, which could be maybe like the traumatic events, and then the sticks are they want to use like the negative thoughts, the internal talk, and it's just like one by one, you're just pulling them out and then allowing that the trauma to release itself.
Almost like a terrible invisible game of when somebody gets hit with porcupine that they can't see, so they don't even know where to pull it out from or what it is, and you won't even need to diagnose it. You'll know where it is and you'll be able to help remove it. So that is something that you've mastered, the seeing, the seer aspect, right? And the mediumship aspect. So I think very strongly the next aspect will probably be controlling energy outside of yourself. And that's, man, that is what I feel. Also untangling storylines for people. I almost feel that you'll have the ability to adjust their view, their eyesight. Do you have any questions around that? How do you feel?
No, I just found that fascinating because I just heard back from a place that I applied to be a volunteer for kids going through grief, and they accepted me. So that's awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Excellent. Okay. Well, you're already on the way. And I knew that would
Yes, I
pan out.
am.
I remember you mentioned it.
Yeah,
Melissa, what was
thank
your
you.
question?
It's the same thing.
Or
I know what I am interested in, and there has been so much change going on, timeline shifts, everything, and it doesn't feel, I'm not sure if what I want to do is where I'm being led to go. But I also am kind of thinking that the direction that I want to go in is both sides of the coin, like an industry job and the spiritual job. And I've been wanting to do any energy work. And so I've had a difficult time finding anybody to teach me. It's like there's a block there. So I feel like they're wanting me to just explore a little at a time and basically teach myself is what I'm feeling. Yeah, it's sort of like the same question Danica had, like where is this going? What direction should I be heading in?
Still, I still see it as an orator, so as a speaker, and they are describing it as C-SPAN, so it would be something broadcasted, and so I think that's going to be one of your main focuses for some time. But whenever you started describing the energy work and not being able to find anybody to teach you, that's not by accident. I almost see you out in nature, but with your palms on trees, and to allow the energy to flow from you to the tree and the tree back into you in unison. If you want to do barefoot, I think it would add to it if that seems it's like something that's interesting. It's just connecting with the external, like with the outside nature, like closing your eyes with your hands on the tree and really opening yourself up and listening. Like I can hear the water in the background, and it's almost like the animals would come to you to aid you also.
So
And
I
Danica, what do
had,
you feel?
well, hold on. Before we go on, I wanted to tell Ariel
Sorry.
because she hit on something. So last week I was feeling so drained, and I knew I needed to get out and go for a walk. So I forced myself to, and I was just in the forest. And so I finally just stopped and I said, okay. And I literally just asked, I was like, okay, trees, can you please share some of your energy? And they did. And it
Yes.
was 3 times, like really strong bursts of energy to me that I felt really strongly was not coming from the guides. Because I was thinking, okay, well, maybe the guides heard me, but no, I really do feel like it was the trees that were responding. So yes, I think that there's something to that.
It's almost like the energy that is going to teach you is at a different level than humanity. Would you say that that's fair? I think it's at a level that they can't comprehend.
So
And
that's kind of what I'm
I'll speak
picking
more
up
on that
on.
too.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm picking up on is I see you like it's almost like this power, like urgency, like you want to do it now. And it's like being blocked because your journey to get there is part of your soul's growth. And if you just had somebody show you, then you wouldn't learn what your soul is here to learn. That's what it feels like. Like you are going to, I'm hearing the word innovative, like create something so innovative. And it's, I see you in like your own space and you are like the leader there, but you have done all the research and all the work and everything that has gone into it to get to that place. And it is almost like you create something. It is healing energy, something, but it is so new that nobody else can show you how to do it. Nobody else can teach you this because they don't have the determination like you have to figure this shit out. That's what it feels like.
That makes
And
sense.
I will just pour, one thing I feel very strongly is that you have a lot of things. So in other words, what is being spoken about between the two of them is that you will be functioning as a channel, right? Because you're going to be utilizing something outside of yourself that is a healing force. That's what any energy worker is. But right now, because there are still aspects of you that overgive and still aspects of you that overcontrol, you are not yet quite what would be comfortable as a channel, right? Because they're basically, it's not that you can't do it. It's that there is going to be more appropriate time around the end of 27 that I feel your actual like auric field, your auric field has some more robustness to it and more time because this year is going to be so busy for you. The other aspect is this. What I'm being led to tell you to do is you need to create a framework that looks like a blueprint. And for some reason, I'm feeling either something like the tree of life, but it's something for you to decide. And I want you to build it from the completed idea backwards, because this is something that you will be teaching almost as an alternative to Reiki. So an example, though not what I really see, is, for example, let's just say that you perceive the root system of a tree to be the beginning of trauma. So maybe root rot. I don't know why I'm seeing that. So you have a way of sending energy that would basically dry a root. So that's one way that you would heal. But then there's another version where you would water it. And you have to understand the modalities of fire and water to be able to function through two hands is what I'm seeing. Almost like there are, and what I also feel almost is like it's temperament on command. So it's almost like your hand being able to learn how to cool down, like, because I feel like your hand over inflammation. And right now you would try to draw that into your body. You have to master the ability to transmute outside of your body. So that's the other aspect of it too, is it's almost a little bit dangerous for you right now. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, thank you.
And I what I also see around you too is you mentioned the Venn diagram. So it's almost like what I see is you take all of these star points. I don't know whether showing you it's like the circle of stars, and it's different modalities of healing. And then you map them and their relationship with each other so you see where they overlap, and you teach that mapping to others. So you're either teaching like a diagram of a tree or you're teaching this mapping system, but no matter what, you're going to build your own system to describe it and to utilize it, and then you're going to teach it, which is also the reason why you are forever a teacher, no matter which side of the road you're in. So if you feel bored, go out and ask them, how do you want me to teach this? And bring something to write with. That is going to be one of the fastest ways to really open this up, because out there, nothing can really take. If you start with somebody who's physically informed, that can go a lot of different ways for you. In fact, even you accidentally binding to clients, because they cling to us when we heal them. But that's
Thank
really
you.
exciting. I can't wait to see what you come up with, because it does feel, and you're going to love it too, because you'll have full control. Like you'll literally be able to plot this I see you like a mastermind of a company, but you're like just figuring out how this is going to be taught almost in a curriculum. So that's going to actually, it's almost like the end game brings about the information. I love that for you.
Do you ever just get like the drops of, or like a quote, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this right now? Right? Okay, so I had the drop earlier, and it was like, this is the new age. You're coming to a new age. And it's like, okay, cool. And
What
so
does this
just thinking
mean?
about, I know. So thinking about like what Melissa's path is, and thinking about the reading that we had did last week, where the advice was to like forge the new path, where it all just feels fresh and exciting, and I feel like we're going to see a lot of that innovation over the next decade or two. And they're going to be, and it's not even like redoing the wheel, there's just going to be just a fresh cycle that we're going into.
Yes. The other thing I just felt too, Melissa, is I do feel there's another thing that it's almost like you build out an understanding or a blueprint of the different like Harry Potter houses, but there's different it's almost like we all belong in certain ways of healing, and you're going to be able to map that and then diagnose somebody what type that they are. So even in your instruction, you'll bring a new aspect of, because there are those that are kind of the broken healers, then those that are the unbroken healers, right? So we have these different ways that we run through circuitry. That's something I feel you focus on as well as a diagnostic. Ariel, did you have that same kind of desire to have that question answered? Okay. Melissa, I'm going to let you start.
There's something around you. I feel such a motherly energy around you that it feels like most of your work is going to be done in your home.
Feel that too.
Yeah,
Interesting you
it
say that.
feels
Okay.
very, there's something about you in this lifetime that you're here to help the younger generation, like your kids. And it's the abundance that comes from what you're able to help your kids with is like, I see it like tenfold versus you outside of the home teaching somewhere else or doing something else. It's almost like your softness and your protection and your motherly ways, if you teach them that, it ripples out into like so many areas. That's what it feels like versus you just like I see you like sitting down with a client and you're able to help them like one-on-one, but it's more abundant for you to be at home with your kids and do that. It helps the collective in a bigger way. That's what I see.
What do you feel, Melissa?
I'm being directed to plant the seed in your head of involving ancestry work with what you do. They're saying that you're going to have a strong connection to your ancestors, and that they are going to be able to teach you ways of helping, I forget the term, generational trauma. So that is a really difficult thing to counter, and it happens with all of us, and that by itself is a they say skill. It is a skill that is not really something that we see amongst healers. I mean, there are people out there who work with their ancestors, but working with ancestors to help people overcome generational trauma is not something that we see very often. They're um, they're just saying when you feel comfortable with that thought, because it's not something you need to do right now. But if it feels comfortable when it feels comfortable to you to work with your ancestors, that's something that you might enjoy doing.
And I just want to say also, a lot of the output, like the energy out from you to other things, is going to be still running behind about a 5-year window. So even though you're dabbling in it now, I do feel that you're going to have access points and exit points because of the nature of still having young children. So no matter what, that's going to kind of come first. But for some reason, I do also feel you're going to have a strong energy around weaving, dream interpretation. And I almost feel that you have a protective element. So for some, I wouldn't be surprised if people that have a lot of night terrors are drawn to you. That's the other, it's almost like a beacon that's in that other realm. And for some reason, I feel that really you have a choice point that you have yet to come upon. And based on that choke point in about 5 to 6 years, you're going to make some pretty strong decisions about what you want your major way of making money is. So I don't know if that means you completely shift gears, but for some reason, I do feel at some point, not really in this, I don't normally go past 5 years because I think everything breaks down after that. But I do feel for some reason you mentoring a classroom of kids. So or either you have a daycare that you run out of your home, or you are participating in like a camp counselor. There's something that you're going to choose to do that is sort of a choke point decision. Either you love this or you walk away from it. So you have a lot of free will is my point, I guess. You're not as held to high contracts in this way, simply because I would argue that on some level, this is a little bit of a rest lifetime for you, because I feel that you've accrued quite a bit of strain. So there is some calming and some healing for you specifically just throughout this lifetime. Does that make sense? Does anybody want to tag on to that?
No, I think that's pretty much what I feel too, is it's like a calmness and you are like emitting that out. Yeah.
And you may turn away from certain aspects of what we're talking about and then re-engage with them later in the generation below your kids. So again, you have these multiple choice points where you can always choose into or out of if something becomes overwhelming. That's one thing that's really beautiful about a lot of the free will I see in your energy. I feel like with some of us, it feels a little more locked in. So and for instance, when I begin the process of having any kids, that's going to also impact what I'm doing out in the expulsion of energy as well, right? But we already know we're all healers. That's why we're here. I love it. I love how none of us are like breaking down the patriarchy. It's like we're just collecting souls. We're just like here to help, which I love.
Yeah, because in
Okay.
6 years,
And the
my
last,
kid, no, they'll all be done with high school. So I guess really
that's
that
what I
will
felt it
be
was. Yeah, you have a
so.
period of high change at that point
Okay.
and high choice. So you better get used to making decisions and liking them or pivoting out of them as fast as possible, because things have sort of aligned in a way for you. At that point, you're literally, it's not even a crossroad, it's like a 5-point crossroad, right? So you're kind of like, okay, I need
Why
to
would
know
they do
myself and
that?
what I want.
I hate making decisions, you know? I hate between
Well,
2 decisions. Now we're talking about 5,
I feel in some different
6,
lifetimes you've had, you wish that you had had more choices.
probably. Yeah. I guess like that would also make sense of why no purpose really like sticks out. Okay, so obviously like, everybody has a purpose here, but it's not.
Well, you have a habit over lifetimes of over serving. And so there were buffers put into place for you to have a more selfish existence. But of course, you still found, all roads lead to Rome, right? So on some level, of course, you were going to sniff out the more spiritual service path. But it isn't necessarily something you have to choose with all of your soul on this time around. Simply because you've done, I almost feel like your energy is like, haven't I given enough? Am I not allowed to sit down? That's what I feel when I integrate and try to reach a deeper, slightly petulant side, right? I almost feel like there's a part of your soul that's like, can I just have a break? So, meanwhile, you're like, why can't I have no options and it be open for me? And your higher self is like, this is what you wanted. This is exactly what you asked for. You have a responsibility to pick something just because you want it. And if that's not enough for you, or you don't learn how to want something, or then that's on you. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be something that you can either struggle with it or regale in it. And you got 6 years to get with it. That's not like overly short time. You know what I mean? Think about all the change that you've made in this one past year alone. You're rapidly learning exponentially. So I wouldn't even be worried about it. Just understand and get ready for it. Almost like you save for college, start to learn to get really knowing of self, I guess, realistically, right? And that's going to be a progression really of about only 2 years. And I feel like the rest of it, you almost start to get anxious for it and chomping at the bits. So I don't actually think that you have trouble with it. You just got to align yourself to know that it's not going to just fall into you, because you have so many different choices you can pick. And the reason that they're not showing me those choices is so that you have to find them. But I think obviously you know one of them.
Okay. But why? When we talk about our childish tendencies with the guides, it's like, but why? Come on.
Control.
Yeah. What's next? Yeah, I know.
Safety, right? Lack of faith. We all have it. But we're all getting so much better at it. That's the other thing too. So
I feel like the little kid who's
mud.
like,
I have
hey.
clients that I see every single time, and I'm like, y'all, you haven't changed at all.
I feel like, tell me the story again about how my life ends. Like, what happens in this life?
I can't hear you.
Yes, that was my funny story.
That's so accurate. Okay. No, that is a good point, because you know how it's going to be okay, but you just want to. Well, because my fear is that next week I'm going to be like, all right, guys, like, what's the question? We're going to be like, mission and purpose. I'm like, all right, you're cut off. No, but that's okay. Okay. And last question, just for me, it's going to situate around any information around sort of if there are hidden altars in my energy that I need to integrate, or information around them, and sort of having a little bit of depth in that. And I'll start with Ariel, actually. And if it comes through mediumship easier, then go there.
The first question that comes up is why for you? Like to you, like for why?
Because there has been a leaking of things that reaffirm to me that what I believe happened. And usually in fractured energy, it is sometimes not in the best interest to be unaware of those fractures. That would be the main aspect of it.
I don't know that you integrating like previous times, it would have to be through various people, like various guides. I don't know that it's really recommended that it be you.
Got you. That makes sense.
Yeah, I just don't know what the benefit would be for it to be you. Because when you look at it from a scope perspective, there is it's like a protective element, but that protective element can only come from a higher place.
So it doesn't make sense to undo the house.
It just would be to err on the side of caution if you decide to, because you can decide to, but to just not feel like you have to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Danica, how are you feeling?
Well, actually a little emotional.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's actually very touching, actually, what I'm feeling. I'm actually feeling you like your younger child, like you as a younger child, and you now integrating, like taking care of your younger self. Like I see you as a younger girl, and you going and like grabbing her hand and bringing her closer to you, and it almost feels like it's going to be very grounding for you, almost like it's integrating a softer side of you, and it's going to bring more peace to you. But to do anything more than that is unnecessary, and it's almost like how we're wanting to know our mission or purpose over and over again. It's almost like that feeling that I have about you wanting to open that up and go there.
Right.
That it's unnecessary.
Yeah. It's that forbidden fruit energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I haven't, and why I've always let the guides kind of tell me, they've always said pretty strongly, not right now, or maybe not ever.
Mm-hmm.
And Melissa?
Yeah, so, and I can sympathize because I've got this in my my little sacred space that I go to meditate, I have this chest that's got all the locks on it. So I asked my guides, I know there's something back there. So can you just bring it here and just leave it there? And we'll see what happens. So the younger me has not been interested in going there. So the way that I view it is that that's fine. Like for me, I do that risk benefit ratio and I just don't think that it's there. However,
Perfect.
my kids are grown adults. Had I been able to do that work before they were here, I think I should have, but back then I was not ready. So if you feel ready, I think that there can be some really positive good that can come from it. But it would not be an easy thing to do, which is not surprising for you. But I agree with Danica. I think that there is a huge potential for the positive side of this. So if you wanted to do that risk benefit, I think you have a lot to benefit.
But it doesn't
Well,
feel like going back and integrating and going through everything that you went through. It feels like just like more of like here, I'm going to bring you here now, and I have you now.
well,
Like you're
even as we're
protected now.
talking, they're showing me that they have burned certain bridges. So there are certain things I would find no matter how hard I try inaccessible. And so they're saying, if you want to stand there at the edge, they're almost showing me like the you shall not pass. Like you can stand here at this edge, but we've burned that there in sacred fire. They said we burned that bridge. You will be able to cross the bridges that we've left. And it's almost they're saying that kind of very sternly. So I'm going to accept that as true. And thank you. I know I've asked about this a little bit before, but I do feel like this is I don't plan to ask about this, especially after March 1st. But I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like avoiding it because I can be very avoidant of certain things. And I can be like, well, I'll just leave that up to spirit. And it's kind of like, no, I do feel like this is not, there are not things for me to really know. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I do see what Danica says, but I also agree with for me, like I let that little girl decide. I let her decide, and she's not ready.
Well, one thing you guys don't know too is when I was doing the guide work with Terry, she had said that she was the only other person that she had seen with this instance in the guide system. But basically that I had a version of myself that was functioning as a guide, but from a younger age. Whereas for her, at the time of her abuse, she had an older version of herself as a guide. And so that's affirming kind of what you're talking about. But I do recognize that I can't ever see her. She always radiates a bright yellow. And I think that she was present in the meditation I kind of did with Terry for that class that she does. But even then it showed up as like a yellow tapestry around a maypole. And I knew that's who it was and what was going on, but again, it's very elusive. So I probably need to do more work to make that connection more firm. But I love you guys so much. And thank you so much for always putting yourselves into these positions to help me, help others, help each other. I mean, that's just the beautiful work of what we do. And that's one of the reasons, hopefully, we never stop. But okay, so let's decide what next week looks like to kind of give a sneak preview. What jumps out as far as fun topics or intense topics? They don't have to be fun.
The Age of Aquarius.
Age of Aquarius.
We could get
I
big
love
energy. And I just had
Yes.
my 50th birthday, so I'm excited.
Ooh, happy
birthday. Excellent.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. Age of Aquarius. I love it. Danica?
I don't know. Come back to me in just a sec.
Okay. Ariel?
Well, let's keep the celebration going, talking about festivals.
Yes.
And I don't know why
Festivals.
Dionysus came up too.
Okay,
What
interesting.
the hell is that?
It's actually the god of festivals and orgies and wine.
Yeah.
Yes. But I know why that's being brought up, interestingly enough. Probably about some files that just got released.
Come on.
And let me see if I can think of one. Ooh. The way I just heard it is, that sounds bad, but it's not. It's just bad in context of what we know. But you know how we say that there are dark principalities that govern and they can move in and out of human souls, right? Like they're spiritual problems. They said the principality of joy, and they want that discussed as a function to be used, so as a tool. All right, Danica.
Let's talk about, like, you know how there's different, like, I don't know what you call them, like high energetic places on the grid or something, like Mount Shasta or
Yes,
things like that. Let's talk about stuff
yes,
like
they're
that.
high places. Yes. And then by proxy, of course, we'd have to talk about low places. Awesome. High places, low. That's a fascinating topic, actually. All right. We have a fun conversation next week.
Yeah.
Let's do
Hurry.
it. I will see you guys next week. And then I'm going to end this,
Mhm.
but don't log out, of course. So, see you guys next time. Thank you so much to the listeners for spending 2 hours with us if you made it this long. And if not, because I feel like some of this work will be reviewed much later from now. So, wherever in the future you are, thanks for listening.